Hey, co-reporters, welcome back to my channel. Guess which one of Chris's baby daddies is out here talking crap about her on the internet again? I'll give you a hint. It's the one whose photo is on the screen right now. Chris Lopez, the third baby daddy. So he is claiming that his son Lux does not appreciate him. And instead of looking within to see why that might be, perhaps it's because Chris was of the deadbeat variety when Lux was first born, and perhaps it's because Chris allegedly went to court and tried to renounce his role as Lux's father. But nope, instead of doing that, he would rather blame it on Kale's dating life, which, listen, it's a tale of its own. I can understand why any of her other baby daddies would be upset about this, especially Joe, because I am sure as the inaugural baby daddy, he had no idea that there would be three others to follow him. But still, it's just, I don't know. Let's take a look at what it is that he had to say, okay? So he went on Instagram Live to go talk that talk about Kailyn Lowry, and the US Senate managed to get a great recap of it. So apparently, while on IG Live, Chris Lopez claimed that, and I quote, "I felt like my son didn't or doesn't appreciate me." You know what I'm saying? I felt like as a dad, I've been for 6 years going hard for my kids, and like that. My oldest son don't appreciate me. It just feels like that. And why I said that and why I feel like he feels like I'm replaceable is because of all the men in and out of his life. And that's a fact. That's not know something I'm just making up on my ass. People have noticed that. I've noticed that. And you say that. All right, well, here we go. I don't know. Listen, I had a lot to say about this, but it's funny because as I continued on scrolling on the Sun, pretty much everything I was going to say was already like kind of like highlighted in the comments that they plucked out for this article. So let's take a look at what some of those might be. Okay. So we already started off with the fact that Chris allegedly tried to renounce his role as Lux's father. Perhaps that posed the problem, but let's continue. Someone said, "Sorry, but I'm sure Isaac and Lincoln don't feel like their fathers are replaceable, and they have seen more men pass through than the younger ones." But he jumps to social media to complain. He should do a deep analysis on his past actions. And I think that's true. Listen, and it's not even just men. Don't forget, Kale dates women as well. And she's had serious girlfriends that she's introduced the kids to. Just based off of listening to her podcast and just watching her on the show, I think that, like, when it comes to Isaac, he's been introduced to at least like 7, maybe 8 different people. And then, of course, that varies by the other children as well. So, and I do agree with the sentiment that I doubt that Isaac feels as though Joe is replaceable, because Joe has been there fighting for him. He left his own state to come follow Kale and Javi to Delaware, even though Kale didn't want him to come be close to his son, right? So what is it that Joe is doing differently than you, Chris, where Isaac feels a proper bond with him, despite the fact that he's seen many more men and women come through his life than Lux has, right? And don't even forget, but Isaac had a full-blown stepfather. Like, the other people coming in and out of Kale's life are just people she's playing house with for the time being. But Kale was married to Javi, and she had him being Isaac, looking at Javi as a full-blown father. Like, Isaac almost looked at him as more of a father than Joe for a little bit, but Joe always was there fighting to be like, Isaac's, primary father figure and whatnot. So why is that? That's a great question to ask. Now let's get into some of the other comments that were put up there by people who were criticizing Chris's video. Someone else said, "Does he forget how he behaved at the beginning of that kid's life? I don't like Kale, but he is no saint either." And so that is to say that back when Kale was filming for Teen Mom 2, she would show how Chris wasn't really doing that much. He wasn't contributing financially. He wasn't really giving clothes like that to the baby. I think he gave like 2 onesies and like a little pack of diapers, but that's about it, which is literally not acceptable for a father. And so I believe that there were also issues of him not being able to hang out with Lux unsupervised. And I wonder what he was doing that caused for that to be the case, because I hadn't seen that with her 8 other baby daddies, right? So I definitely agree with that comment as well. And now another person said, He's concerned now, but he didn't have a problem being baby daddy number 3. And so that obviously is in reference to Kris criticizing Kail for having multiple men in and out of her life and the children's life, actually, and saying that that is the issue why Lux is not really appreciating him as a father. But it is true. You know, this girl was out here getting pregnant by any and everybody when you met her. She already had 2 baby daddies before you. And not to mention, what about you, Kris? While you were with her and she already had these other boys, were you respecting her other boys as someone who feels like a father figure should be respected? Didn't you still have your harem going on? You were never single while you were with Kail. You were never monogamous with Kail, so you had no reason to have a baby with Kail, who already had 2 other kids to take care of. You didn't only disrespect her, but you disrespected her 2 other kids. So, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. At least Elijah seems to be monogamous with Kail at this point, which is a lot more than you can say. So you were rotating other women, driving this poor woman crazy. So stop it at that time. You know what I mean? And like, you know, she already was out there pop locking it and dropping babies with other people. So why go and knock her up not once, but twice? You can't turn around and cry about that. These are adult decisions that you chose to make. Okay. And guys, does anyone have a deep dive on how his harem is going now or how it fell apart? Because I know that even while Kail was giving birth to Creed, he never left the first women of his harem. But what about the other women? Kail has said on the podcast that there were at least 3 or 4 women in this harem. So how did he go from 3 or 4 to however many he has now? Is he now primarily with his son True's baby mother, or are the other members of the harem still there? You know, so honestly, listen, it's so funny to me when men live their lives a certain trifling kind of way, like juggling people, and it's all well and good. But the second a woman does it too, all of a sudden you are the victim. You walked right into the situation, eyes wide shut. Though I will say that the person who has to be the most foolish out of all of them in this situation is Elijah. You know, it's like, okay, one kid you had when you were 16, unplanned. Okay, like, you know, I get it. The other one, oh, you were young, you got married, you thought, you know, you were trying to overcorrect your teen pregnancy situation. You thought that like this military guy was going to save you or something like that. So you have a kid together. And then he steps up as a father figure for your first kid. I get it. So like, you know, for Kris, that's the leeway I can get him. But I don't understand why he would decide to be a 3rd baby daddy with her, knowing that he was never monogamous with her, and just all of this stuff is such a mess, you know, especially having 2 kids there. But now when it comes to Elijah, here you come being number 4, all, you know, that's just a certain level of insanity that I do not even know how to begin to examine. Anyway, guys, I want to know what you think about Kris's comments here. He seems to be incredibly upset at Kail for having these new kids with Elijah. Remember, he's the one who outed the first pregnancy, and he's been like, you know, talking, very like low key, throwing out subs about the twin pregnancy as well. So it seems to be something that's on his mind. But listen, one thing about Kris is he loves to get online and talk about his baby mama to his baby mama is like, you know, fans and haters alike. There's just something about Kail in Kris's life. And I think it's the same for Kail. That's what makes the 2 of them so funny to me. Like, if you listen to her podcast, like I do, I listen to them every week to recap for my channel members. But she, like, the main star, the person that she still thinks about like crazy is Kris Lopez. But then when you hear about what Kris Lopez is doing on his podcast and on his Instagram lives, this, that, and the other, he's mainly talking about Kail too. So it kind of makes you wonder, like, if there's something that's going to happen between the 2 of them down the line or something like that, because they are both giving obsessed. They are giving, this is my, what is it that the kids are saying there on the TikTok? My Nikon moment, my Canon moment, Polaroid moment, whatever it is, this is it for the 2 of them. Can you imagine if things didn't work out with Kris and that new baby mama and with Kail and her new baby daddy, and they decided to get back together and have one last kid together? Oh, Lord. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised based on how obsessed the 2 of them are with each other, but I digress. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section. And as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much. And don't forget, feel free to join my channel membership for exclusive videos, mainly podcast recaps and things like that. Okay. That's all for now. Bye, guys.